This is Gemara Pesachim Daf Nun Aleph. All the learning for this month, the month of Tevi, since it's entered as a special Chosi l'Neshama for Rashi Basari Leib, as well as Chosi l'Neshama for Leib ben Yaakov Neshama Shav and Aliyah. Of course, all our Chidim Chamil ben Malkim Tchilit Sipar Bas Nethili Yehuva Yidimir ben Yakir many of Vega Chaim and Sar Shlamasim and Reizitul Sar Baskin Endel Basim Chayser Yisrael Memindol Eliezer Perez the Shavalea Shalmit Bas Noami Bas Shavafig of Shirachana Podamini Teriva Shmo ben Tila Al Rivka Bas Slava Daniel ben Khan Rezo Malkachayo Bas Amino Yudari Rafal Ben Yitel Brachos Tevia Musa B'Say Shar Chayze Yisrael. We pick it up on the bottom of Nunam Abayis, continuing these Gemaras of Minhagim, different customs that different places had. We're holding 5 lines on the bottom. Says the Gemara B'nei Baishin. The people of Baishin Nog Dulavi Azli Mitur Lataitin. Their minhag was they would not go from a place called Sur to a place called Sidon on Erev Shabbos, but Malash Shabbat and Erev Shabbos. So Asu Baneir, their children came, Kami to Rav Yechon in front of Rav Yechon, and the kids said to Rav Yechon, what should we do? Sorry about that. Also, Kami to Rav Yechon and Amr Levi said to him, Avasa and Efshalu, our father, they were able to do it. And now Lo Efshalu, what should we do? We can't take on this Chumrah, not being able to travel so far in Erev Shabbos. Amr Lahu, Rav Yechon responded, it's too bad. It's a minhag. Your father already accepted it. Shnemar, the pasuk says, Shema b'ni muzar avicha al tishas Torah yisimechel makar from minhagim. You have to follow the minhag of your father. Says the Gemara b'nei chozai nagum devar shechala me arza. Interesting. He needs to take a challah from rice, which of course rice is not a grain that you'd have to take a challah from. Also, asu v'amrli Rav Yosef. They came. They told Rav Yosef. Amrli Rav Yosef said, nechla zar b'apayo. Let a non-kohen go and eat the challah in front of them to show them that it's not challah. What are you separating challah from rice? It's not challah. Instead of regular Yisrael, go and eat it in front of them. Says the Gemara, 1 second. What's the status of something which is mutter? And there are people who believe in their noig isser on that item. Says the Gemara, moving along to non alpha mebeis. The rule is once they're noig isser, you can't be mekel. So very good that rice is not really asser, but they're noig isser. How could it be mekel? Amru lai. Do we not learn on this? They were dealing with the kusims. Says the Gemara, my time. What's the reason by the kutim you're not allowed to be mekel in front of them? The misarchi milsa, like Rashi says, because it's a kula mezalzin yeser. They're going to come to be mezalzel. They're not going to know the reason why we're being mekel, and they're going to come to be mekel in other cases. These people, nami misarchi milsa, these people as well, they're going to come to be mekel in other places. Therefore, says the Gemara, that is the reason why you should not be mekel in front of them, and you should not go and eat the rice in front of them. Again, the Gemara is teaching us an important rule, that even though it was complete chumrah and there was no reason for it, but says the Gemara, we're afraid that it's going to come to further kulas, further zilzul, further degradation of the halacha. Therefore, you should not tell them off. Says the Gemara, Lam Rav Ashi, but says Rav Ashi Chazina, we saw Ruban. You should check Ruban Ariz Achli. If the majority of people ate rice, then lo nechlu zar babayu. Then a zar, then a non-kohen should not eat in front of them. Why? Because then we have a big concern. If you go and tell them that there's no issue of eating, you don't have to take up challah on the rice, but that's only bread they eat. So they're going to forget all the halachas of challah because they're going to think, there's no such thing as challah nowadays, and they're going to come to even eat the wheat challah without thinking of challah. V'ruban dagon oichle. But if majority of the people eat regular grains, then then you should eat, and you should show them there's no reason to separate challah from rice. Why? Because it can come to a terrible problem. What's going to happen? They're eating this rice bread, the thing of challah. Okay, there's no reason for it. There's no chiyuv, there's no obligation. They're not doing anything. But you know what can happen? They might think that what they're doing is thinking of challah, and then they're going to go think of challah from this rice bread for a different type of bread. We know when you have a whole batch, you can think of one for another. So you might come to think of something which is chiyuv al abatur, or vice versa. Therefore says the Gemara, if the majority of people eat other breads, then you should tell them that they're doing the wrong thing. Says the Gemara Kufa, moving more into this halacha of dvarma mutar machirim noig mam iser, something which is mutter, but there's a minhag people are noig iser. You should not tell them in front of them that it is mutter. Rather, let them continue with this minhag of a chomra. Amar Rav Chisda, 3 stories. Bekutaya askina, we're dealing with kutayim. I'm sorry, it says Rav Chisda, we're dealing with kutayim, and that's the reason why you can't be mekel. Meaning, really in a normal case, tell them it's not the halacha. What are you being machmer for? It's not real. But says Rav Chisda, by kusim, then we have to be careful, like we saw a moment ago. Why? Because they might come to mizalzel further. Says the Gemara, v'kuli amalai. Is that true? That's only by kusim that we're machmir. And we don't tell them. But everywhere else, Nava, Tani, we learn to the right, so 3 different cases. Two brothers are allowed to be together. But in a place called Kvol, they had a chumrah that 2 brothers didn't go into the bathhouse together. And there was a story. You might say, Yehuda, the Hillel, the story of Yehuda and Hillel, who were the children of Gamliel. They both went and they followed the Ikar halacha. The straight halacha is why you're allowed to be together. So they went, they took a bath, the 2 brothers, Bikvol. And everyone's talking about them. What are you doing? Why are you bathing together at that place? They thought it was us. So Amru, they said, everyone said, we never saw such a thing. So what did Hillel do? So we would think right now, what should Hillel do? Hillel should get up and say, what are you guys doing? It's mutter. Don't think it's aser. But what did Hillel do? And Hillel slipped away. And he didn't tell them anything. Question number 1, that we see a case where it was a chumrah, they were being naik for absolutely no reason, and yet he didn't tell them they were wrong. Question number 2, Atem Yoitzim B'Shabbos, let it go out with these loose-fitting shoes on Shabbos. However, in a place called Biri, they wouldn't wear these loose-fitting shoes on Shabbos. Again, there was a story. They went out with these loose-fitting shoes. Biri, and the place called Biri on Shabbos. Again, everyone's talking about we never saw Larinu Kach. We never saw someone doing such a thing. What do you got? Again, in that place they thought it was aser. They quickly took off the shoes, they gave it to their servants. Again, they didn't tell them, what do you mean? It's mutter to wear these shoes. Case number 2, that we see they're noig a chumrah, and yet we didn't tell them off. And case number 3, meaning we're asking again, the Rav Chisda said that only with the kusim we don't tell them off, but everywhere else we do. Kusim special because we're afraid it's going to come to a zilzal. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? We see 2 cases, we're about to see a 3rd where they did not tell them off. Case number 3, Shabbos, you're allowed to sit on the benches of Goyim on Shabbos. In Yeshal Sasali Nachem Shabbos Ba'ako. In Akka they were machmer. Says the Gemara, Meister Shimon Gamliel Sheshval Sasali Nachem Shabbos. Shimon Gamliel went and he sat on the bench on Shabbos Ba'ako. And Akka v'las leim Kol Medina again. Everyone talking. What's Shimon Gamliel doing, sitting on the benches? Amru, he said, Miyamenu. Amru, all the people said, Miyamenu Larinu. We never saw something like this. Kach. Nishman al Gabe Karka. What did Shimon Gamliel do? He quickly slipped down and sat on the ground. He didn't want to tell them that it was mutter. Says the Gemara. So what's going on? 3 questions, 3 cases of people who did something which was mutter. Everyone's talking about them and they don't tell them off. Why not? Seemingly only by the kusim you shouldn't tell them off. Answers the Gemara. These people were seafarers. They were people out of sea. They were people out of town. We'll call it. They were B'dinas Hayam. They were far away and they weren't Rabbanim there. They were like kusim, meaning they didn't have Rabbanim, and that's the reason why. They were afraid if they told them off and said it's mutter, just like the kusim, we have a concern. They're going to come to Yimekel further. So too in these 3 cases, they were concerned they were going to come to Yimekel further. Says the Gemara, okay, let's go into these 3 cases. The case you shouldn't sit on the benches. Okay, it's a chumrah that makes somewhat sense. You might come to think it's buying and selling. This loose-fitting shoe, why are they machmer? We learned the whole Shabbos, the whole Erev, and all those many gezeras when things fall off. You might come to pick it off, so this loose-fitting shoe, they made a gezerah. You might drop it and might come to pick it up. What was the reason why they said you're not allowed to bathe 2 brothers? It's mutter. Says the Gemara, like we learned in a brisa. With every person you're allowed to take a bath. Again, back Bisman Chazal, there were bathhouses, public bathhouses as used to go, maybe similar to mikvahs nowadays. You're allowed to go with anyone. Chotz, except for whom? Aviv, your father, V'chamiv, your father-in-law, Ubal Imai, the husband of your mother, meaning your stepfather, and the husband of your sister, your brother-in-law. Rav Yehuda Matir, Ba'aviv Yehuda says your father is Motor Mnei Ovid for the sake of your father. V'uadin Labal Ima, and so to the husband of your mother. V'asu Inu, so meaning really everyone else is Motor, just these people are Asur, as the Gemara will explain. Potentially could cause someone to have her improper thoughts, but everyone else is Motor. V'asu Inu, in this place they came because of B'shnei Achim, they made a special Gzeira. 2 brothers cannot be together. Why? Mishabala Chaisai, because the case of the husband of your sister. Exactly, the concern is not clear, but they made a gezerah that 2 brothers cannot be together, and that's the reason why they didn't do it, and that's the reason why they didn't tell them off, because there were no rabban and they were afraid they were going to be mekel in other cases. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a Mishnah. Talmud, furthering these dinim about bathing together. Talmud le'rachat rabbi. Talmud should not bathe with his rabbi. V'im rabbi tzarich loy. But if the rabbi needs you, needs help in the bath house mutter, then you're allowed to, obviously dealing with it appropriately. And this is the reason why Arayim Hazeh in mikvahis very often the rabbanim go earlier. There's a special time for the rabbanim to go because they shouldn't be together with their talmidim. It's inappropriate. The itarya, he ate this thing called itarya, which is the fat that's covering a certain part of the animal, the smooth fat, which is mutter. Ravira Saba came, Rabba Braid Rav Huna, even the Chazinu, when he saw them coming, he quickly covered it up as if he's not eating it. Also, they came, and they said to him, why are you covering it up, Lavai? You make it like the kutim. Well, we know it's mutter. Why are you pretending something else? Rabbi Rav Chana, Leslie, he doesn't know that, which we learned in the Mishnah. What do you mean? He took on both chumras. Amar Abaye, no. Honey, mili bibavel. That's only mi bavel libavel me'eretz Yisrael l'eretz Yisrael. That's when you take on both chumras. Inami mi bavel l'eretz Yisrael. However, what was this story? Me'eretz Yisrael libavel al me'eretz Yisrael libavel loy. That case is mutter. Why? Kiman danan kaifina loho. Because the people in Babel are kafaf, are subordinate to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, and though you don't have to take on the extra chumras, avdina kavasayo. That's the reason why he was allowed to eat these fats. Rav Ashi Amar, a different teretz. Afilu tem Eretz Yisrael leBavel, really could even be Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Hani mili echa dein daitoi lachzar, such tremendous words, such big sugyas. Says Gemara, that's only when you don't have intent to go back to Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Rav Chana daitoi lachzar, he had intent to go back, and that's why he was allowed to pretend and allowed to do halachically like he's in Eretz Yisrael. Obviously, the first cousin to the sugya is someone who travels from Chutzlar to Eretz Yisrael, or vice versa. Does he hold 1 day yantif? Does he hold 2 days yantif? What if he's there for all 3 regalim? What if he plans on living there? What if he potentially could live there? This is one of the big lines. Daitoi lachzar. How do we gauge? How do we dan? What is the litmus test to figure out your das that you're not, that you want to go back to? You can't. My children, you shouldn't eat not in front of me, not in front of me. Ani, but I, says Rabbi Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, I saw the gadol Rabbi Yochanan. I saw him eating it. Kedayu Rabbi Yochanan. I could lie in Rabbi Yochanan in front of him. Vishaloi b'fanav, and not in front of him. But I told you, my children, again, what's going on? I saw Rabbi Chana says, I saw Rabbi Yochanan eating this thing. So I went and I ate it. Fine. And I could even eat it not in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Because that's what happens when you see the Gadol Adar doing something. But he told his children, I told you, you cannot eat it whether you're in front of me and even not in front of me. Meaning, you would have thought his kids could maybe eat in front of Rabbi Chana because he himself is eating this item. Says the Gemara, no. And the Gemara now explains, really, Pligat is a steer in his own opinion. Why? Damar Rabbi Chana, Sochli Rav Yochanan Elazar, Elazar taught me about Machas Dechnasi Achar Rav Shimon ben Rav Yosi ben Lukunya Legina. One time I went after Shimon Yosi to the garden, moving along to Nanalef on the base, V'notal Safichei Krov, and he took the aftergrowth of the cabbage, v'achal, and he ate it. V'notzanli, and he gave it to me. V'amarlin, he told me, B'ni, my son, v'fanai, achal, shaloi b'fanav loy ta'achal. Why? Ani, I sharisiz of Shimon Yochai. I saw the gadol Shimon Yochai sha'achal. Kedayu Rav Shimon Yochai l'zvachla b'fanav. V'shaloi b'fanav. But I thought, you, my Talmud, b'fanai oichel. In front of me, you can eat shaloi b'fanav loy ta'achal. Says the Gemara, we even steer exactly what he held. On one hand, he told his kids, you're not even allowed to eat it in front of me, Rabbi Rav Chana. Whereas he himself is allowed to eat it because he saw Rav Yochanan whether in front of him or not. But now the Gemara quotes another story which seemingly proves that in front of him, you should be allowed to eat, just not in front of him would be the issue. Says Gemara, my Rav Shimon. What's this Rav Shimon that we're talking about? Says the Gemara, the Tanya we learned in the Brayso of Shimon Omer. Says Rav Shimon, Kol asvichem, all the aftergrowths by Shemitah, asurim, you're not allowed to consume chot mesvichei krov, the aftergrowth of the krov, of the cabbage, she'ein, kiyotem b'yarik asad, there's no such thing similar to them in the vegetation of the field. Next year is Shemitah, actually. Seeing here some of the halachas that the aftergrowth, the things that just grow by themselves, those items do not have the kedusha of Shemitah, says Gemara, and there's not even something similar to it, and that's the reason why you don't have to be concerned. The Chachamim argue, all aftergrowths are aser, because there are other aftergrowths which you do plant, v'tarvayu aliba de Rabbi Kiva. They're both going to the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, the Tani learned in a race. Hey, no law in Israel le'nesaf. It says, behold, we will not plant and we will not gather in Esfuasenu, our crop, referring to Shemitah. Oh, Of course, if you don't plant, you can't gather in the crops. So what's the pasuk teach me? We don't plant and we don't gather in. Of course not. Mikan says Rabbi Akiva, we see from over here. Lisfichem, we see from over here that the aftergrowth, says Rabbi Akiva, sheina asurin, they are aser. But Michael Mifki, what's this machlekes? Rabbanan said gets you nesvichi krov atu shar svichi da'amba. The Rabbanan hold this is a gezerah. Other svichem do have things similar to it, and therefore you can't even eat the svichem, the aftergrowth of the carib. Rabbi Shimon zavar legas you nesvichi krov atu svichi da'amba. If you're allowed to eat the aftergrowth of the cabbage, that concludes his first thing for today. And that when we're allowed to do something in front of someone, not in front of someone, are we allowed to say that I have das to go back to my original place so I can take on those chumras or those kulas, etc. But now we conclude, which end of the Mishnah was very interesting. If we go back to the Mishnah, yesterday's daf was very interesting. The parak began and said, if you go from a place to another place, you got to take on both chumras. But then the Mishnah continued on Nunam Abayz and it says, but don't be mishana the place where you're at, which obviously is a stira to contradiction as the Gemara now speaks out. If you're going from a place where they do malacha, in a place they don't do malacha, I mean you're going to a more makel place. So now I understand. You take on the chumras of your old home, and you shouldn't do anything in this place, and you shouldn't do work. Again, you come from a place which does not do work, and you come from a place that yes does work, and you go to a place that does not do work. So we give you the chumrah of the new place. They don't do work, so take on that chumrah, and therefore don't change because the machlekes. We don't want people to see that you're working. That's not the minhag here. Ella says the Gemara, what about the flip case? I come from a place they don't do work. Now I'm in a place where they're yes working Erev Yantif. So Mishnah said you should not change because of machlekes. So what would come out to not change? Again, I come from a place I don't work in Erev Yantif. I get to a place that yes works. So what comes out? V'niyavid comes out that I should work in that place because I don't want to change from the minhag hamakim. What do you mean? We said you should take in the chumras of the place that you came from. No, it's not going in the both dinim. It's only going in the first case, like we just explained. In this one case, you don't have to be worried. Again, you come from a place that does not do work. You go to a place that yes does work. You don't have to be worried to not do work like the place you came from. What do you mean? But everyone else here is doing work. Why is it not called a shina? You're changing from the minhag. Says the Gemara, my Kamer. What are you worried about? People are going to see you and say, you think malacha is also? No, they're going to say, you're just a batlon like everyone else in the shuk, just like none of them work. You're also taking a day off. So in this one case, that you're doing something which doesn't have a stigma to it. There says the Gemara, you let it change from your minhag, but we see definitely very important, which is a big sugya halacha. Maybe we'll give a share on that. But we see very important that you should never change from the minhag hamakim, and certainly we see at the end of today's Gemara that it should never change if it's nicker, if you could see that it's a difference. The one case that we allowed was where it was not recognizable what you're doing because people think, you're just being a batlun. Pick it up from here tomorrow.